Hello. Welcome to those who are just joining us. Seeing lots of faces I recognize. For a moment, I thought to say thank you for spending your lunch hour with us, but I guess potentially your breakfast, and in some cases, if you're joining from Europe, thank you for sharing your dinner hour with us, folks from across the country or the world. I think we will just take maybe 2 or 3 more minutes to let people trickle in, and then we'll get started with our exciting topic today, taking inspiration from Denmark's food system transformation.
So we can just do some basic housekeeping while we do that. So the webinar will be recorded and we'll post it to our YouTube channel. So if you're watching this recording, welcome to the amazing hour that's going to follow us here. We could get started with the intros, I guess, Amy, would that help? We have a really tight schedule and want to make sure that we get to the discussion with our amazing two speakers from Denmark. So
and maybe I'll just plug too, now that you mentioned it, Nourish does have a YouTube channel where we upload most of our past recordings of webinars. So if you're ever interested in an hour of your day to learn something new, I would definitely recommend going over to that channel. Happy to begin the intros then. My name is Amy Ford. I'm the Director of Planetary Health for Nourish Leadership, and I'm joined by Jen.
I'm Jen Reynolds, one of the co-executive directors of Nourish. And Amy and I are going to be your co-hosts, co-pilots today, and we're joined by two very exciting speakers from Denmark. So Jesper Vengdrup, I'm going to probably mispronounce your name, and where the hospitals that you work at, I have new with a Danish pronunciation. He's the executive head chef with the Department of Nutrition at the Vengdrup hospitals. Just outside of Copenhagen, as I understand it. And he brings some really amazing experience in fine dining into the hospital food service environment. And he's going to be sharing with you some of the powerful short stories he shared with us about combining gastronomy and nutrition and new ways to feed patients with some innovative small plate models and sustainable food.
Super exciting. And we're also joined by Ida Auken, who is a member of parliament to Denmark. She was also a spokesperson for climate for the Social Democrats and was previously actually their minister of environment. Not to mention, she has a really good TED Talk online, so I'd recommend checking it out. Jen and I were able to hear Ida speak on a panel earlier this year when we were in Copenhagen, which is kind of what's prompting today's webinar. So I'm excited to share both of our guests' vision with you today. We do have a packed agenda. We're going to spend an hour together, and in that time, we want to start by briefly telling you who Nourish is, just in case you might be joining for the first time. And we're going to tell you a bit about this trip that we took to Denmark, why we went, what we learned, and then we'll invite our guests to brief us on their part in this amazing food system transformation that's been happening in their part of the world. Chef Jesper is going to give us a taste of hospital food where he lives and works. I'm excited for you to see that. It really inspired me. And MP Ida is going to explain how their politics were enabling those amazing changes to happen. And then if all goes well, we're going to save time at the end for some discussion or questions.
So if you're new to hearing about Nourish, we are an initiative working across the country to make better food the cornerstone of a more sustainable, equitable, and proactive healthcare system. So we're focusing on the food that is served to patients by all different kinds of healthcare providers in long-term care settings and rehabilitation, really trying to move the needle towards sustainability and cultural food. And we also are very concerned about upstream health and really seeing the opportunity for greater investment in addressing the social determinants of health and the transition in a bigger systems way to make sure that everybody has access to cultural, affordable, healthy food and really be preventing and addressing health upstream. So we're really excited with the connections we see in our work. So our two core programs that we'll speak a little bit about today are our innovation cohorts and two of our action learning programs. One is focused on indigenous foodways and the other on planetary health.
So as part of our Planetary Health Menus programming, we actually entered into a partnership with the World Resources Institute to be able to be the animators of something they offer called the Cool Food Pledge. And we wanted to bring this in a big way to Canadian hospitals. So Cool Food is a shared challenge for groups to reduce the climate impact of food by 25% by the year 2030. And you do this by making research-driven changes to your menu. World Resources Institute, or WRI, is a global initiative that's working in many areas. So they do things with forests and oceans and many other areas. And were the ones that have actually invited us to Denmark to go to this event that we're going to tell you about today.
Yeah, this is our trip report and slash inspiration moment of all the things that we got excited about from our trip. So with the summit was the inaugural European Summit of Cool Food, and it brought together professionals from a wide array of fields connected to food, city governments, restaurants, contract caterers, corporate dining, universities, hospitals, and nonprofits. So we were really honored to be invited, and we traveled from Ontario and Nova Scotia to attend. And there's another Danish thread too with Nourish, just to briefly mention it, going back to 2018 when we invited Dr. Jens Vengdrup. He's retired now, but the Danish senior physician in clinical nutrition at a large hospital in Copenhagen to visit Canada. And we invited him to share his insights because at that time there was a big focus on the House of Food, which I don't believe is still in operation, but still a really pivotal model that I think really has a lot of possibilities for bringing into Canada, really focusing on building the capacity in the food service sector to help us achieve these big, bold visions that we have for food and healthcare transformation towards sustainability. So our hopes for this trip were to be able to connect with diverse groups at this summit, immerse ourselves for a few days in the Copenhagen food culture, and to learn more about how change happened. What is the story of Danish food system innovation, and what are the elements that we can bring into Canada?
So I can start by just speaking about some of the, that's okay.
Sorry, we have our slick show with a little glitch. Sorry, Amy. I was supposed to say something next.
That's no problem. I was just going to say some of the things that struck me right away. So right after, getting off the flight and entering what was my first time in Europe, maybe embarrassing to admit, I saw bicycles everywhere, roads that were fitted with bike lanes, something that, in my city, I just wish we had more of, even proper places to park them and keep them secure. That was one of my big, amazing reflections right away. I also noticed that no matter where you walk, you pass a Michelin star restaurant. So how incredible that there's like this amazing fine dining culture. I also noticed, and something that I brought up to my cab driver from the airport, I didn't notice a lot of people that seemed to be unhoused. And I know that takes an assumption because you don't know someone's situation from looking at them, but certainly know people just in alleys with their belongings. And I asked, is homelessness a problem here? And he said in his time since 2018, he knew of 4. And I thought to ask 100, and he said 4 homeless individuals ever. And I thought that was a pretty striking difference to what we experience in Canada. And I was eager to find how that happened. And then lastly, just very happy people. Everyone I spoke to loved to be alive and had good things to say and positive outcomes in a lot. So that was really special to experience.
And it was also just remarkable to see the investment or infrastructure as around cycling, but also electric vehicles and renewable energy. And we got to hear a lot about the really exciting innovations around just that thinking of the entire system and how it all fits together. So I think that was just kind of a really special experience to have, to be able to walk around and absorb it, and a real centering of art and culture. So I think that was very rejuvenating. We can't wait to go back.
So obviously our main priority for having taken this trip was to attend this cool food event that we were invited to. The first day was an invite-only session that involved chef training for low-carbon meals, and this took place at the MAD Academy. And to fully express how meaningful this was to me, the person who started the MAD Academy is Chef Rene Redzepi, who is the founder and executive chef of Restaurant Noma, arguably the #1 restaurant in the world, and is soon closing that location or taking a pause. We don't know. It's been on my bucket list since I was young. So to go to an academy that was founded by this incredible visionary was really special. We learned so much at this session. Um, Renee, his whole vision is training up the next generation of chefs and food professionals to have sustainability and equity at the front of their mind. So they're providing like deep education about climate change, how our food system works, how our food system can mitigate climate change, and instilling a responsibility in this next generation that the food they provide doesn't need to be a second class climate friendly alternative. It needs to be the best of the best that people want and choose, and it just happens to be climate friendly. It needs to be so good tasting that it's like the primary option. An interesting thing that one of the instructors there explained to me was he sees the food system like an iPhone. So the users, or people who eat, should have a sense of how to use the apps, and they kind of know how computers work. But the food system key players, the chefs, the professionals, the people who write menus, who run the supply chain, are responsible for the programming behind the scenes that make the phone work so the diners have an easy choice.
And then the following part was a welcome reception, which I think really framed up, I think the powerful strategy that the World Resources Institute is pursuing with Cool Food, which is trying to have as many different stakeholders as possible really commit to achieving the target, to stay under the threshold to have a livable planet. And they invited, as you can see, on the second day, a number of great speakers from big organizations or entities like IKEA, telling the story of how they changed their iconic meatball into a plant ball and how they made that be successful. Burger chains, other kinds of chefs spoke as well. And then they also gave some highlights of the behavioral science that underpins a lot of these initiatives and how that operating system that Amy was talking about to really nudge people, because I think there's sometimes discomfort or questions. Will I like it? I'm not sure I want to commit. And really, it's trying to nudge people to try these different meals and dishes and taste and see how it makes their body feel. And that often is a really important first step to be supporting all these visionary changes that we want to see in our public plate. So we met, here's just some of our snapshots and selfies of some of the folks we connected with. So some of the leaders that were there were from Harvard University, cities in the UK, hospital leaders, food businesses, and systems thinkers. And that's just a shot of one of the delicious plant-based tacos that was prepared by the Sanchez restaurant for us to enjoy at the welcome reception.
And this webinar just wouldn't be complete without talking about the amazing food that we enjoyed. I snuck in a slide of just my most delicious bites. So here we have some dishes from places like Sanchez, NR30, some incredible coffee shops, one really good hot dog stand, and even our hotel breakfast bar was pretty incredible. We went to Hart Bakery, which you might know from the show The Bear. And lastly, totally not on the organization's bill, I did slip in a trip to Restaurant Noma. So for those of you that were holding your breath to find out, I got that bucket list checked off and it was pretty exciting.
So to transition to our speakers, we wanted to have just a snapshot of some of the big markers as we understand them of Denmark's food system transformation, just kind of ground their presentations and they can speak to more of the details. But the big signal was in 2004, where a collaboration of countries known as the Nordic Cooperation came together and crafted the new Nordic Food Manifesto that really committed to health and local food and sustainability, and really trying to have all of the food and culture pieces fit together as a system to enable them to achieve that vision. In 2007, the Copenhagen House of Food was established, and its focus was really on public meals and setting ambitious targets for organic ingredients. And I think Jesper especially will speak a little bit to that. And then in 2019, the city of Copenhagen itself took the Cool Food Pledge for public meals, and they have already reduced their carbon by 17% to date. So I think in a often meat-centric meals in many of the cases, I think that's a pretty significant achievement. So yeah, we're really excited to now invite our Danish speakers to round out and go deeper into all of these stories and tell us about the work that they're leading and their vision for the future of how to have food be part of this delicious climate action revolution that we're all part of. So over to you, Jesper.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. First of all, actually, now that you talk about Noma, and I don't think that I can emphasize enough how much Noma has meant to Denmark when we look into the restaurant business, and also just how how proud we are of Danish food now, and why the Nordic Manifesto actually came together. Noma has changed the restaurant business totally in Denmark, and this is why you also see so many new Michelin-starred restaurants in Denmark, not only in the capital region, not only in Copenhagen, but also in other parts of Denmark, because the level of food in Denmark now is extremely high all the way around. So I'm really happy that you could experience it when you were here. And by the way, I get very proud of hearing you guys talk about Denmark, about the bicycle systems and pedestrians and homeless people and so on, because this is not something we think about in Denmark. We just live in it. This is how we were raised, and this is our society. But it's really, I get extremely proud when you talk about it in the way you do. So thank you. First of all, my background and why I'm here today is I am a chef from some of these restaurants that we are talking about. I came from the Michelin business, and some way up the road, I always knew that I wouldn't work in the restaurant business when I wanted to have a family and have kids. So somewhere up along the road, I chose to do a bachelor degree in health and nutrition, and when I finished this this education, I was lucky enough to get a job here in Herlev and Gentofte Hospital, and I started here in December 2013. At that time, we had a Nordic cuisine, which was actually done by two former Noma chefs, together with the old chief of this department, and they started it in the summer of 2012. So I started here in the middle of this new Nordic cuisine in a hospital. From around the end of 2014, I was the head of development, and I've been here ever since, doing the development of the kitchen and of the unit. And it actually started with an organic food transformation, and we were below 30% at the time, and we were front runners in the capital region of Denmark, and the aim was to get at least 75% within 1.5 years, and we did. It was hard work. We had to dig into the garbage bins to see, do we throw out food that we could actually use in some other way, because we were not allowed to use more money doing the transformation to organic food. And as it is right now, we are between 82 and 88% organic food in our kitchen. Our bakery department is above 90, so they have what we call the golden mark of organic food. In the beginning of 2017, we had a new chief of the department, Marianne, and when she started, we did a big survey among our patients, and none of them liked the Nordic cuisine concept. that we had, because they were not here. They hadn't chosen to be here. They were here because they were patients. So they didn't choose to go to Noma or Geranium or any other Nordic restaurant. So we closed down the Nordic kitchen in 2017 and started asking our employees what they would eat from their home country. And they started developing different dishes, and we just had dishes from all over the world within a few months, and we've done it ever since. From 2018 until the summer of 2022, we worked on a new concept. So we didn't want to do a buffet serving any longer. We wanted to change it to an a la carte system instead. But all the way through, it's always about developing, and it can be developing new dishes, but it can be a concept. It can be more organic food. It can be more sustainable food, a more sustainable production, a more sustainable system, all in all, and always with the nutrition part within. And Amy, I think you can press the next to the next slide. Yeah. In Denmark right now, we have a lot of discussions about sustainability and how to work with it. And today, I'm not going to focus on social sustainability. We do all these three parts that it says in the small picture. We do it all in our unit with our employees and everybody. If you hit the next, if you click again, Amy. This is what we talk primarily about in Denmark, and especially in the kitchens that I work in, the public kitchens in Denmark. Organic food, we still talk about it, but organic food is no longer the main focus of what we discuss. We discuss sustainability in another sense. So it's more that we look into the reduction of CO2 emissions. And the main focus on reduction of CO2 emissions in the kitchens are to look into the protein sources that we use, meat or vegetables. And of course, everybody wants to increase the amount of vegetables in the kitchens to reduce the CO2 emissions instead. And you can hit it again, Amy. Thank you. Yeah. This creates a new discussion when we talk about meat or vegetables, because when we look into the hospital business, we need to focus on the quality of the protein, the amino acid composition of the proteins. And when we talk about switching from meat to vegetables, it creates quite a big dilemma for the patients indeed, because when we change from meat or dairy, fish or eggs, we change it to low quality amino acids that has a lower absorption in the body, which means that we have to eat 20 or 30% more food. And if you hit it again, Amy, that creates quite a big dilemma, because the two persons you see in these pictures, they are the ones we're focusing on. Those are the elderly, it's the malnutrition, it's the patients with a small appetite. And if we ask them to eat 20 or 30% more food because they eat protein from vegetable sources, they won't be able to do it. They'll give up in advance. If we serve a platter of this amount of beans instead of a small amount of meat, they'll throw away the beans from start. They'll give up. They won't be able to eat it at all. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't work around it. We do. But the public kitchens in the capital region of Denmark, they only have a CO2 emission of 1.5% of the rest of the CO2 emissions in the region. So it's not a big amount of CO2 emission we create, but it's a place where everybody thinks you can do it easily. You can easily reduce your CO2 emissions. Yeah, it looks easy, but it's not easy when you look into the group of patients that we're working with. And this group of patients are the ones that are the most expensive for our society. And they are also the ones that will get back readmitted in the hospital if we send them home. So this is quite a big dilemma if we just say you can all just use vegetables instead, because you just need to combine it in different ways and you will still get all the amino acids that you need. That's not how it works. And the solution, I'm not saying that we have the perfect solution at all, but next up is a movie about how our system is working, how the patients can order their food, and also how they can make a note on how much they eat. And there's a nutrition barometer that tells them if the food can be a part of their treatment in the hospital. So Amy, I think you can press play.
Welcome to Herlevs Herligheder and the digital menu card. In this film, we will guide you through your ordering options. In the digital menu card, you order exactly what you fancy of selected small delicate dishes. We look forward to preparing your meals, which is served to you on the ward 3 times a day. Tap Start Måltidsbestilling. You need to log in to the digital menu card to order your food. Enter your social security number and then tap Login. The tablet responds best at calm pressures. To get to the menu card, tap on Måltidsbestilling. You now see the menu card. You need to choose which day and which meal you want to order for. For example, press I morgen and then select the meal below. For example, Aften. You can scroll by running your finger up or down over the menu card. The small dishes are divided into categories so they are easy to find. You can also get an overview of the categories by pressing the View button. Return to the menu card by pressing the Close button. You order by pressing the small plus below the image of the dish. After selecting the favorites, you can see them in the order window at the top right side of the screen. You can change your order right up to the order deadline. It's done by pressing the icon, paper and pencil. In the order window, you can see the individual meals and the entire day's order. It's a good idea to follow your order as you choose. Then you're sure it's correct. In addition to your main courses and desserts, you will also find your snacks in the menu. Your snacks are delivered to you along with your main meals. They are taken off the tray and put on your bedside table until you feel like eating them. Your breakfast order must be placed before 6 a.m. Your lunch order before 9 a.m. and dinner before 3 p.m. In the nutrition barometer that you see in the bottom right corner, you can keep up with your need for energy and protein and your meals being covered. Your goal is to lie in the green zone between 75 and 100%. The nutritional barometer will turn blue if you order more than you need. If you get below the 75%, you can easily supplement your order with a small extra dish at each snack. The small dishes marked with an asterisk are extra rich in energy and protein. If you press the small I at the nutritional barometer, you can see the data that the dietitians have calculated exactly for you. and you can watch a small movie about the nutritional barometer by clicking the movie icon. In the meal diary, which you can access from the front page, or above the menu card, you can easily record how much of your meals you have eaten. As you enter, you can see that the nutrition barometer is regulating itself, and the actual fulfillment of your energy can be read in the right side of the page. When you finish your order, simply press the logout button in the upper right corner. Your meals are arranged on a tray divided into a hot and a cold zone. On the cold zone, there will also be accessories for your hot dishes, which you complete yourself. Staff at your department will provide drinks and cutlery for your meals. At the top of the menu, you have the option to view a version in English. Please let yourself get inspired by the small, cool and warm dishes, sweets and nice snacks. Bon appetit.
Yeah, so this was a small film that all the patients have to watch the first time they log into the digital menu card, so they know how to order their food and why it's important that they do it, and they can see the nutritional barometer regarding how much the food can be a part of their treatment. This slide is about the sustainability when we look into environmental and financial parts of our a la carte system. And we launched this a la carte system in June 22. And these, I don't know if it's called scales in English, I don't think so, but you know what I mean. They show how the reduction has been through 2022 from when we had a buffet system and when we changed it to the a la carte system. So the first quarter is a buffet system, and the fourth is with the a la carte system. And this goes to show that you don't necessarily need to work primarily with vegetables and proteins from vegetables to reduce CO2 emissions, or to make a more sustainable production. You can also look into your whole concept. Does it create food waste? Does it create an overproduction of food when you do it? Then you need to change your system. And as you can see in the top right corner, our total CO2 reduction on groceries is 63% in 2022, just by switching to another system. And this number doesn't even count packaging and wrapping supplies. So the CO2 emissions of our production and our system is the reduction is even higher if we looked into wrapping supplies and plastic. And as you can see in the top left corner, the reduction on price for packaging and wrapping supplies was reduced by 46%, just by changing a concept. Not just because it took 4 years and a lot of money and hard work, but the results are quite significant. And last but not least, the reduction on price on groceries was 19%. That's not even, we don't even include the inflation that was on groceries in 22 because of war in Ukraine and instability in the world. So actually the reduction is even higher than just 19%. Now, this is I'm happy about the results, but this is what I focus on. I focus on the food and what can we do with the food so it can be a part of the treatment. And in October 23, we had a nutrition audit in the capital region, all the hospitals, and it was comparable groups of patients. They had all been in the hospital for at least 3 days. They had a small appetite and they were malnutritioned. And what we can see is that when we look into protein and energy content in the food, we are by far the most, we have the highest quality in our food. We're not where we want to be yet, not at all. Our aim is to be at least 75%, that at least 75% of our patients get enough protein and energy in their food. So there's a work in progress still here. On the other side, you can see how the patients rate our food, because we could put more protein in our food, use more protein powder or whatever, but that would mean that the food wouldn't taste good, or the texture of the food wouldn't be nice, so they wouldn't eat it. At least now they really like it. They rate it for 3.4 on a scale that goes to 4. What we know is that this number could be even higher, but they rate milk, coffee, tea as well. But we don't serve milk, coffee, tea, juice, or whatever. That's not our job. It's in the wards. But they still order it in the digital system, so they think that they should rate us about the drinking supplies. We've tried to get it out of our rating, so the rating will be even higher just on the food. We also know, I didn't include it here, but we also know that our patients eat between 86 and 89% of what they order. So it's quite a high amount of the food they order that they also eat. Which of course is nice because the food can be a part of the treatment. Yeah, how does the future look? Yeah, I put in a crystal ball here, but I don't have the crystal ball. The thing is that I don't know exactly what the future looks like. I have some hopes, I have some thoughts about where we're going. But in the end, we're a political run organization. So it depends on what the political agenda is in the capital region of Denmark. And I don't know what it is in 5 years' time from now. If you hit the next one, Amy, thank you. As I said, right now, there's a discussion between a green agenda and there's a nutrition agenda. And my hope is that we can combine it even more, because as it is right now, I don't think that we're working in the same direction. It's like sometimes it feels like we're speaking different languages, but we need to come together and find the right path that we can go to. And I don't see why a green agenda and working with nutrition amongst patients should be something that is called collides, that works opposite directions. It doesn't have to be like that, not at all. What we need to do is we need to find different solutions to different groups, and focus on what group we're working with. So, for instance, here in our unit, we also have the staff canteen production, and our staff canteen, they can make a lot of they can work with green proteins, and we also have wards in the hospital that they don't need meat, not at all. If you've given birth, you don't need to eat a meatloaf. You can eat chickpeas instead. and that's something we can do with our digital system. We can arrange the menu cards so the birth department, they see vegetable dishes, and the geriatric wards, the malnutrition patients, they will see the meat dishes instead. So my hopes for the future is, as it says, that more hospitals should have an a la carte system, because we can see what results we have produced within a short amount of time. Plus, we can make sure that we can rearrange everything, because it's a digital solution, so we can change it to be to fit with the future. All right. You hit it, Amy. I just need to say that we need to remember what the audience is. Who are we working for? And then we need to find a solution that works for this audience or this audience, so we can still do it in a sustainable way. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I wasn't cutting you off. I was trying to read your mind to see when to go to the next slide, but that was fantastic. I really appreciate it, Chef Jesper. Wow. So now I'm going to hand it over to MP Ida, who's going to give us a sense of how the government and the policymakers were able to be instrumental in this transformation, beginning it, seeing it through, and getting it over the finish line. So I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy, and thank you, Jesper, for all your work. I think the story that Jesper is telling you about both Copenhagen, both the municipality and all the public kitchens and the region, hospitals, and what happened with Noma and the whole scene is one audience in Denmark. That is sort of the front runners, that are those who are really foodies or urban professionals driving a lot of this. So there is, to be honest, a completely different story about Denmark too, to be told. Because if you look at our land and look at our agriculture, and these are some background facts that I'll have to give you to let you know that we're not coming from the easiest starting point. And I think as a Canadian, you would probably also want a story about, you know, just not the beautiful little Denmark that can do everything because we're just 5 million and we're all happy and we're all, you know, biking and whatever. So to be honest, in Denmark, we have 66% of our land farmed. Okay, 66%. I think we are the second most farmed land in the world. Only Bangladesh has more farmed land than we do. And on that land, 80% is animal feedstock. We also have about, at any given time, 13 million pigs. We are exporting a lot of bacon and a lot of milk and a lot of dairy products. We have about 70,000 people working in that sector, about 30,000 full-time people. But it is a sector that is all the time becoming, you know, larger and larger farms and more, you know, conventional agriculture and mainly animal-based. So this is our starting point when we're trying to transform the whole food system. And in many ways, what Jesper and other people have been doing has been run by a lot of people who hasn't necessarily been politicians. Of course, a lot of the public procurement, but the whole transformation of our food landscape is run by chefs and other, you know, people. So from the political side, we've had 25 years back, a lot of people from my party driving things on the food side, but it's been standing still for a long time. So what we've been doing the last years is to say, when we talk about climate, we have a climate law setting some really strict targets on emissions. We're going to reduce 70%. And this means that the sector that will be left with more than half of all emissions, if we don't do anything, is the farm sector. So that is like a really big problem for Denmark, but also I see it as a big opportunity. And in order to get the whole landscape going, we've had to start with a political different way of seeing things. You can't just work with the front runners. Like Jesper knows, you have to think about the audience. And the audience is like maybe 80% is a completely different place than all of us in this discussion today. So what we did is we've tried to make a whole action plan for plant-based food. And this action plan is the world's first action plan, and it's not perfect, but I do think has some really important steps in it. First of all, getting the whole value chain into this approach has been extremely crucial. So we've talked to all players, those in the primary production, the food production, the retail sector, just getting everybody on board to listen to their perspectives on how do we get a more plant-based production, but also consumption. And Danish farmers, they will tell you two things. One is, we will produce whatever the market wants. And this means if we will start demanding plant-based food and more legumes and vegetables, they will make it. Secondly, they have back from when the war was, in the 40s, they have this idea that it's a moral obligation to produce food for the whole world. That's what Danish farmers like to do. So if you think about that being their mindset, how do you talk to the farmers and get them on board? Well, first of all, you promise them that you will do a lot from the demand side. And secondly, you can tell them, if you take just 10% of the land and transform that into plant-based food and not animal feedstock, if we eat it ourselves, so to speak, we can produce food for 3 million people more, like just transforming 10% of the agricultural land we have. And thirdly, trying to point to some of the new markets. So I think Bloomberg and others have done some really interesting studies on the new markets for plant-based food and telling them, guys, if we get just 2 or 3% of those markets like we have on the animal-based markets, we can produce maybe 20,000, 30,000 new jobs in the whole food sector. So we've tried to get them on board instead of turning this into a fight between, meat and vegetables. And this is really one of my pieces of advice. Don't turn this into a fight between meat and vegetables, because you will lose a lot of people, and food is just so emotional. It's really something people will react to. So secondly, we've looked at the way we do agricultural support. So EU gives a lot of money to the farmers just to farm the land. That's also going back to the war and supply. And we've looked at these new bio schemes that EU is doing to see if we can use them more targeted to get farmers to produce either more ecological food and also more plant-based food. So we really try to, and we also look at the research sector. Can we have more crops on each piece of land so that they can compete with legumes produced in Germany or other places? They need to produce more per hectare in order to have the startup companies and others buy their legumes and vegetables. So we have also had to look at, in this strategy, we've then looked at not only the primary production, but also in the demand side. And some of it is public procurement that Jesper is also talking about, where the municipalities and the regions play a huge role in the meals that they serve. Amy, heard the story of Copenhagen, so I will not repeat that here. But there's also one of our other largest municipalities, Aarhus. They've done a procurement strategy where they actually put their own tax on meat in the procurement system. So they didn't need the government to do this, but when they told all the public procurers what you buy for your kitchen, they put a tax on meat, which had an immediate effect. So that is also one idea of how to do this to transform kitchens. Another thing is we have these nutrition recommendations. I don't know if you have this pyramid of what to eat, and we had meat was playing a huge role for many, many years, meat and milk and dairy products. And 3 years back, we changed that whole nutrition recommendation so that everyone working with nutrition in public kitchens will have to look at much more plant-based diets, and I think that has also been rather important. Then we are trying to help the startup community to enter into canteens, enter into the retail sector, getting funds from the government. So we have these funds, but they all have been set up for the animal-based agriculture. So if you just put money out there and call it green agriculture from the government side, it will be like the climate pig. Who can do the more climate-friendly pig, if that's the infrastructure you have. So we've had to be very clear on that the research and development money we are putting out there is for plant-based foods. And we've set up a very big research collaboration between all our universities that have done this roadmap. You can maybe look it up also. It's called AgriFuture, where they're trying to map sort of the future for Danish agriculture and getting everybody on board, also the large companies and a lot of the startups. Yeah, I mean, I've sent you this action plan, and I need to check my time. Yeah, I'll leave some questions time also. So I won't go deeper into that, but I'll tell you that chefs like Jesper, if he was trained in a Danish school system with the vocational training, you will see that the books that they are training today is all meat, because that's the way the schools are set up. So, and these schools are actually not us doing the curriculum. So I've had to like go to the people in the committee doing the curriculum and sitting there and explain to them why plant-based food is important. I've had to go to ministries and explain to them why plant-based food, to the Ministry of Business, why this is good business. I've had to go to the Minister for Business and get him excited on the opportunities for new growth. I've had to go to the Minister for Agriculture and show him, you know, this is the future. I've had to work with the unions and say, look at all these new jobs. You're afraid of losing your butchery, dairy jobs. But in the plant-based sector, you will have new jobs coming. So I think a lot of this is also about finding some of the people that you can get to drive your agendas within ministries, within the different sectors that you're working with. You have to find the people and go directly to them and really have a very handheld approach, even though we have the strategy. But this action plan that you see has had a real impact in the Ministry for Agriculture, because they were like, when they were starting doing this plan, they're like, oh my God, there's all these initiatives are going on and we have to link them. And they used this action plan to actually go from one ministry to the other. So they went to the ministry working with exports and said, you know, are we only exporting animal-based products? Maybe we should start also promoting Danish plant-based products. They've gone to the ministry, like I said, for business and see, can we do some startup seed money? They've gone to the ministry for research and development and said, when you give funding for green agriculture, you have to be specific on the plant-based. So for that sense, this action plan, I think, has been pretty helpful. I want to just give a few more comments and leave 5 minutes for questions. We have also made a climate mark for, I don't know what's label, climate label. And we're working on a climate label for food in all the retail sector. It's not an easy job because people disagree a lot on the baselines, but I think it will be very interesting, and we're trying to push the EU to take up this climate label. And, you know, basically all vegetables are class A. You know, all the stories about, you know, avocado and walnuts, forget it. Like, they are almost all A. I think garlic is maybe a B. The rest are A. So working on the climate labeling, the discussion that Jesper was picking up on between nutrition and that's the second thing I want to tell you. I have some warning signs. One is, if this is turned into a fight between nutrition and green, I think green will lose. And some of these plant-based products, some of those who are also substitutes to meat, which I support if they're healthy, I think a lot of people have a hard time changing their food culture. So if they want to eat burgers, and the way Danish food culture is actually, if you go outside of Copenhagen, it's really just very meat heavy. You might want products that are healthy, but still look like the meat. So we have, for instance, one Danish company, I don't know if you tried it, any of you, Jen or Amy, it's called Matter. And they've made a burger like Beyond Burger. But the Beyond Meat has 10% fat. Matter has 2. Beyond Meat is full of additives and a lot of salt. Matter is made out of only beetroot, potato, lupin, which is a legume, and 3 other, you know, pure products that they're using fermentation to turn it into something that looks like meat. So I think Denmark could brand itself to have these substitute products not only tasting really, really well, this is really good, like from texture and taste, it's a lot like a burger, but also having the nutrition hit it right, because I think that could be a big attack on this sector if they're starting to produce products that look like meat or milk and is really, really poor. Emotions, never underestimate emotions about food. So don't turn this into a fight with people who want to eat meat. Tell them all the benefits to their health. Show them that this is the win-win-win for if we want more nature in Denmark, we can produce more food in less land. So we'll free out all this land for nature. Tell them that this is something that will live longer, and the whole game changer story. I really believe that is something that will change some people's mind. My party is a really white party with people from all classes and all educational background, and I've got them all now to eat plant-based burgers, and it's hilarious. And getting into those guys, they're big plumbers or butchers or whatever, and getting them to talk about plant-based food they're reaching a lot of other people than I do. So I think having some ambassadors that are not just creative class urban professionals like myself, but in the rest of the country, I think is also an important step. And lastly, taste is like key. If you only serve people something like beetroot burger completely mashed to death, they'll not eat it. There are some people launching in Denmark, Danish Crown, which is our bacon producer. They launched a plant-based burger, and it tastes like. So I think it's more like a coup or something, trying to destroy this transformation. So getting the farmers on board also, and seeing their markets and not getting them to feel like they shouldn't be there. Finding the pioneers, finding new allies, maybe surprising allies. And lastly, of course, one more structural thing that we are looking at this moment, and I hope we will succeed within the next 6 months, is to have a CO2 taxation also on the agricultural sector. And that is not easy, because they think about competitiveness, all of these things. But we're really trying to do, if we can do a setup on the CO2 taxation, where we have a tax of about maybe around €100, and then you get half of it back as a deduction, no matter what. So you'll get the money, but if you can reduce your emissions, you will have not had the whole tax kicking in. So I think we're trying to set up this new structural push for the agricultural sector to do this transformation. Yeah, so that's a long story short, and we are not even halfway there. We haven't started 20 years ago like Noma and other people did. It's been, in politicians like myself, we've been talking a lot about energy when we talked about climate, and now time's come for food and transformation there. Thank you.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing all. That was just so rich with telling your story, and also just seeing the pieces that we could totally apply here. I felt like I should have been taking notes, but I'll watch the recording later. I think my pen would have lit on fire if I was writing that quickly. Thank you to both of you so much. It looks like we have just a little bit of time if anyone has a pressing question. And if not, I'll advance to the next slide just to show we do have some email addresses there where we could continue the conversation. And before we take a question, maybe I'll just say also thank you to WRI, who invited us to that event and really sparked these new relationships and our learning. So how special. I'll stop the share, and if anyone raises a hand, we do have a moment.
So I see somebody, Roxanne is saying that she feels like she's years away from this, but I think if you go to the rural areas or less urban areas of Denmark, it would look like many of the places where you are. So I think this transformation can come quicker than we would know. I mean, cultural changes, they can spread really rapidly if you get a small group of people and you see your neighbors doing something, and then it will actually spread like this. So I would think focusing on some areas and where you can get all the people in a city, or like Copenhagen did, that will inspire the rest of the country and show that it's possible. And there, I don't believe that. I think we have areas that are comparable to many Canadian people's view on these things.
Did you want to add anything, Roxanne?
Yeah, I just appreciate what you're sharing. I just and the pictures that you showed up earlier on your food requests there. I'm jealous of that. I would love that. And I'm a indigenous person that live on the east coast of Labrador. So we've been advocating things that are closer to you or less impactful on the environment. You don't have to travel as far, and local foods and things like that. I think it is when it comes to plant-based food, it's very new for us on the East Coast. There's certainly going to be a lot of education. It is, we're seeing, and then people are questioning where their food is coming from because we have a lot more sicknesses, and people are thinking and connecting it to the foods that we're eating. And I think it's good timing to introduce this new way of eating with plant-based foods and healthy. And the challenge we have is we don't have as many. At one time we did have a big agricultural community, and now we don't have as many. And the land's being taken over by industry and just being left for lawns. Really, to be honest, people are not growing their own food in their front and backyards as they once did. But I really appreciate the information. As was already mentioned, I'm going to have to go back and listen to it again because there was so much packed in there. So thank you.
Can I just add, the strategy that we've made, or the action plan, is actually translated into English. So maybe, Amy, you should share the link, because then you can also look at what we've been doing, because I know it was a lot of things packed at once, but I think really just wanted to show how we try to go at like every part and think about what is their interest, like the people you want to change, what is their interest? And if it's a guy, he wants to live longer because he's getting grandchildren and he's overweight, or, he wants to, look good, or the woman, like you have to think about at the hospital, they want to be, they want to be healthy. They want to be back in their life. So you have to show that this is for them and not just some ideological project that we're doing for something else.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about your strategy, is really making it's not a single bullet, like there's not one thing that will solve it. It's stacking all of the elements of health and economy and culture and sustainability, and all those elements really need to be included in how you approach change to be successful. Yeah.
Well, I think I'll move to wrap us up just based on the time. Thank you again to our guests. And I'll follow up with that link, and perhaps maybe get that video circulating too, so other folks can drool over those tarts and the different things that you showed. Thank you so much, and for being with us till 7 p.m. your time. Much appreciated. Thank you everyone for attending today.
Good luck.
You're welcome. Yeah, good luck.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Bye-bye.
And if you have any questions, send us an email and we'll be happy to follow up and share the slides and the recording with you. So thanks again.